Hello you guys, it has been a while since I have last filmed, so I'm super excited to be filming this video today. It's one that I have been wanting to do for quite a long time now, but honestly the last month or so it has been a really big struggle to get Boston to eat in general, so I just didn't feel like I was in the right mindset to make this video, and I honestly don't feel really qualified to make it, but I just want to preface this by saying that I'm just a mom who is learning by experience, and I just want to share my experience with you guys. I am not an expert, and I've learned so much on this little journey. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, watched a lot of videos of what other moms are doing. I know a lot of mamas in my life that use all sorts of different feeding methods, and I just want to say this before I dive into everything. However you choose to feed your baby, as long as that baby is fed and happy and healthy, that is truly all that matters. I just want to share my experience with baby led weaning, and I want to hopefully encourage some of you guys out there that are thinking about doing it, share some tips and tricks that make it a little bit easier, and just share how my journey is going so far. So my son Boston just turned 1 in December, and he has been doing baby led weaning since he was 6 months old. You can start at any time, even if you've done spoon feeding for a while now. If you want to attempt at baby led weaning, that is always an option. Or if you are doing baby led weaning mixed in with a little bit of spoon feeding, that's okay too. We are not strictly doing one or the other, but most of our experience has been baby led weaning. I feel like anytime we're kind of in a rush to go somewhere and we don't really want to do the full cleanup, we'll do a little bit of spoon feeding with the more messy foods like oatmeal or beans, or those foods that are just kind of mushier and harder to clean. But I would say 90% of the time we are doing baby led weaning. So the first thing I want to talk about is why we decided to do baby led weaning. The reason we chose to do baby led weaning is because it just seemed like the most natural option. When it comes to breastfeeding or bottle feeding, you are reading your baby's cues. And I feel like when it comes to baby led weaning, you're doing the same thing. They eat until they're full, they let you know when they're full, and it just felt the most similar to what they've been doing their whole lives. So it just seemed like the more natural option to us, and it just made the most sense to us. And I think the other appeal to me was that he would be eating the same time that we would be eating. So whenever we're sitting at the dinner table together, I wouldn't have to feed him the same time that I'm eating dinner. He would just be feeding himself while I'm eating dinner. And I feel like that was a big appeal to me because I don't have the capacity to be feeding both of us at the same time. I just feel like it made meal times a little bit less stressful. And I've noticed too, whenever I do end up spoon feeding him, it just ends up stressing me out more. So that's another reason. And I would say that another reason is just that it worked really well with our family. Anything that we were making, we would just modify it a little bit for him, and we didn't have to go out and buy baby foods or specifically make foods for him, if that makes sense. We could just kind of eat whatever we wanted to eat and then give him a modified version of it. So that just made a lot of sense for us financially. It ended up flowing into our natural day-to-day life a little bit better. So since Boston was going to be eating with us, I feel like it also helped us to be a little bit more mindful about what we were eating, and so it helped us to be a little bit healthier. So the things we'd buy at the grocery store, we knew that he would be consuming too, so we knew that we wanted to get high quality things, more natural ingredients, and I feel like that really helped us a lot too. So I feel like it just helps everyone in the family, honestly, and I also really liked that aspect of baby led weaning. And the last thing I really liked about baby led weaning is that it is a whole sensory experience for them. And I'm sure if you are in this phase of motherhood, you are learning so much about the word sensory. I feel like it's everywhere. I feel like everyone's always talking about how great it is for kids to learn new things and experience new sensory things. So food in itself is exposing them to so many different senses. I mean, they're using their sense of taste, they're using their sense of feel, they're using their sense of smell. I feel like it's just such a fun experience for them. And so that was one of the biggest reasons why I loved the idea of baby led weaning, is so that they can really just explore and learn how to eat and have a whole experience with it. So those are reasons why I loved the idea of baby led weaning. The journey itself was definitely not an easy one, I would say. It was actually really daunting to me to think about feeding my baby. One, because of the choking stuff. I feel like, you know, you hear about that a lot, and that really did make me so nervous. We ended up getting a life vac, and it basically is a suction that you put on their face whenever they are choking, and then it kind of suctions that food out. And I feel like I had seen so many ads for it that it convinced me to buy it, because even though I'm a nurse and I know how to do the Heimlich, you just never know how you're going to react in that scenario. And I just wanted something for peace of mind. So we've had it ever since he was 6 months old. We've never used it. We've never struggled with him choking on anything. And I think it was really helpful to learn from Katie Ferraro. One of her episodes on her podcast was learning the difference between gagging and choking. And that podcast episode was so helpful for me, because whenever he gags and just turns red, I knew that nothing bad was actually happening to him, and that he was just developing that gag reflex, which is so important when you're eating food. So now that we've talked about why I chose to do baby led weaning, let's talk about things that made it a little bit easier. The cleanup. Let's just talk about it, because I feel like that really is the hardest part, at least for me. It was the cleanup and the food preparation. Those two things were just a lot for me. You know, always thinking about the next meal and thinking about cleaning up afterwards, and it was just all very daunting to me. So the first thing, cleanup. There are a couple things that we got to make things a little bit easier. And first of all, the best thing that you can do for yourself is get a high chair that is easy to clean. Not a lot of crevices, not a lot of cushion, just a really simple high chair that is easy to clean and has a footrest. The footrest is important because it stabilizes them and helps decrease the risk of choking. And the high chair part of it is super important, because we made the mistake of getting a high chair that had a bunch of different layers and just so many little cracks and crevices, and it was just a nightmare to clean. And so we ended up going ahead and getting the IKEA one because it was super cheap. And then we just got a footrest that was sold separately on Amazon, and it was super easy to install. We can bring it with us when we travel somewhere, and we just love it. It's so easy to clean. It seriously is such a dream. I was so grateful that we made that decision, and it was honestly kind of hard to bite the bullet and buy the IKEA one, because the other one that we have was so expensive. We just thought that it would be the best one because of how expensive it was, but it's not. If you are going for expensive, I've heard really good things about the Stokey Trip Trap high chair. I believe that's what it's called. And then that same brand also has another high chair that's more modern and also has that footrest and very easy to clean. So if you're going for expensive, I would go for that brand. But if you're going for something a little bit more affordable, go for the IKEA one. You don't even need the tray. You can literally push the high chair right up to the table and baby will just eat with you at the dinner table. And that is why I love that high chair. It's amazing. So that really helped make it a lot easier to clean. The second thing that we did was get Swedish dish towels. This stuff is incredible. I don't know why I had never heard of it until now. They are basically reusable paper towels. And the reason we got this was because we realized we were going through so many paper towels, like an insane amount. And paper towels are expensive and they're also super wasteful. So we ended up getting Swedish dish towels and we tried a bunch of different brands and basically they all are kind of the same. So we just get ours from Amazon. We did try the papaya ones and I feel like those are a lot pricier and the quality is the same as the ones you can get on Amazon, and you can get a lot for pretty cheap on Amazon and they last about 6 months and you can put them in the dishwasher and they don't smell like rags do, which is amazing. Like there's no odor, they dry super quickly and they dry into this hard consistency. So we usually just hang it on our wall and it literally dries within the hour, I feel like. Even if you don't have a baby, I feel like this is just one of those life things that you should just use. The other reason we love them so much is because they are a lot thicker than paper towels and not as flimsy, and so it's easy to wipe things up and the food just rinses right off of it. So they're just so good. 10 out of 10 would recommend. The next thing that we got, we don't use this every single day, but we got the Tineco or the Tineco wet dry vacuum. I don't know if that's exactly how you pronounce the brand, but I had been seeing them everywhere. I feel like everyone had been using them. I saw it all over TikTok, all over Instagram. I was like, you know what? This would actually be kind of nice. Like it's kind of genius, you know? It's like a vacuum and a mop all in one, and it really is genius. It works so well. I only use it whenever I'm doing like a full deep clean. Otherwise, I will just use my Swedish dish towels and wipe off the floors, wipe off the chair, wipe off the table. And I'm not really a stickler anymore for getting things perfectly pristine. It's just not realistic to do that every single mealtime. So if there's like a little bit of food left on the high chair, I'm not going to worry too much about it. As long as it's mostly clean, it's whatever. You know, I feel like once you become a mom, you start to realize that little things like crumbs here and there, it's just not that big of a deal. But here and there, I do like to do a really deep clean of the kitchen, of the house, of just all the things. And so whenever I do the deep clean, I will use this vacuum, and it is really nice because it really just picks up all the little crumbs and all the little pieces off the ground, and it also mops at the same time. So that vacuum works really, really well. I love it. I probably use it like once a week, and it self-cleans, which I love that. And the next thing that really helped to make baby eating a lot easier was actually doing sink baths. I never thought I would be somebody who would put my kid in the kitchen sink, because you think about all the stuff that goes in your kitchen sink and you're like, ew, why would I put my baby in there? But when you have a bath that is upstairs and you have a baby who's making a mess in the kitchen, got cottage cheese all up in their face, in their crevices, you don't want to bring them all the way upstairs. You know, little pieces of cottage cheese could fall along the way. And we have a carpeted upstairs, and so I don't want all the food to get all up in the carpet, you know? So the best decision that we made was doing sink baths. It just made rinsing him off a lot easier. All we do is we scrub down the sink before he gets in. If we happen to get any meat juices in there or anything like that, we'll just use baking soda and some vinegar to really desanitize it, and then we'll scrub it down. And then we'll just use a drain stopper, fill up the sink, let him splash around and play, and I don't know why we didn't do it sooner. Okay, now let's talk about baby lead weaning supplies. So I had mentioned before the IKEA high chair, and then the footrest I got from Amazon, and I will go ahead and make sure to link all the stuff in the description box so you can find all the things down there. The next thing I feel like is a must-have are suction plates. Now, we used to use silicone ones, and we started noticing that Boston's food tasted literally like soap anytime we would eat off of his plate. And so it was just so disgusting, and I got really nervous, so I threw all of the silicone plates away and we started using the suction plates from OXO, and those plates are so good. The suction is so good, and it's plastic, and so it doesn't absorb all the soap, and it's just so much better. They have plates that have dividers, and they also just have simple plates without the dividers. They also have bowls, I think. They are kind of pricey, so we just have 2 of them and we just interchange between the 2. We have a couple from Munchkin that are also plastic, but the suction is not as good, and Boston has figured out how to lift those plates off the table, and so we don't use those ones as much, but we still like them because, you know, it's not like the silicone ones where you can taste the soap or anything, but we just don't use them as much as we do the OXO ones. The next thing that we use are silicone bibs. I know I just went through a whole spiel about silicone, but we just can't find any other bib that catches food the same way that silicone bibs can. If you guys know of any bibs out there that still catch food but aren't flimsy, let me know, because I can't find any. We've tried the ones that are more like aprons, but those are just so flimsy. I feel like it doesn't really catch any food, and I don't know, I just don't like those as much. Let me know if you guys have any insight on that. The next thing is, in the beginning when Boston was a little smaller and needed more support, we got a seat cushion from Etsy, and we got a couple of covers for it. My favorite ones are the ones that are more leathery because the food washes right off of that. The ones that feel more like canvas-y, I don't like those. You can't wash them as well. They stain really easily. And so I'll link down the ones that we got below. But the seat cushion was really helpful to just kind of keep him sitting upright and stable and not like slouching or anything like that. The next thing we really like that is also silicone. I feel like everything baby-wise is there's so much silicone, and I really just other brands or materials, but there really aren't that many options out there. So for baby spoons, we used a silicone one, and Boston's favorite one was one that had a little hole on the end because he could pick up foods a lot easier. So those are really nice. And then we did try the ones from Easy Peasy, but I just feel like he couldn't grip it very well, especially when he was eating foods that were really slippery and it would get all over the place. He would just not be able to grip that one very well. The last 2 things I'll talk about are things for baby drinking water or milk, things like that. I learned a lot about the open cup method when I listened to Katie Ferraro's podcast, and so we decided to try that earlier on. And so we needed tiny little cups, and so we started off with the silicone ones, and those worked really well. And now we use straw cups, and our favorite straw cups are the Zax straw cups because they don't spill when they fall over or anything like that. So those are really nice. They're just a little bit harder to suck out of, and so he doesn't get as much water, but we usually just have one laying around where he's playing so he can go grab it, take a drink, and then set it back down, and we don't have to worry about them spilling. And so we really like those cups. But usually at the dinner table, he's very into drinking from our cups, so we usually just let him drink out of our cups. Okay, so those are all of our favorite feeding supplies. Now we can talk about my journey, how it went, how it's still going, and all the little ups and downs along the way. So in the beginning, I think it was a little bit easier because you start off by introducing one food at a time, and it was just kind of a slow start, and you introduce different allergens and stuff. I feel like all of that was kind of easy. I feel like once it hit the point where he started doing 2 meals a day, that's when it kind of started to get a little bit more difficult, because we really needed to start planning out his meals, planning out our meals, and making sure that he's getting what he needs, making sure that we were doing enough grocery shopping. And so it just kind of felt like a lot. In that full first year of life, they're not supposed to have any sodium. Once they turn 1, they can start to have a little bit of sodium, but really want to limit it. And so that made things a little bit more challenging too, because we had to make his meals a little bit differently than ours. So we would have to make a full meal for ourselves and then another little meal for him. And it just felt like a lot. But once you kind of get into the groove of it and you start to get into a flow, it does get easier. And some of the things that we did do to make things easier for ourselves was use a slow cooker. I feel like that was one of the easiest ways to introduce meats. We did a lot of beef, chicken, some lamb in the slow cooker, and that made it a lot easier to introduce meats and make sure he was getting enough meat. We also prepared a little bit more for him in advance so that if we were cooking our own chicken or steak, we could season ours and he would already have some ready for him. I feel like for me, when I started baby led weaning, I would see all these videos of other kids eating so much food at the age of like 6, 7, or 8 months. And it was just kind of discouraging because Boston really didn't eat that much food. He was not that interested, and it was a really slow start for him. He was interested in picking up the foods and taking bites and stuff, but he was not eating like a full-blown meal. And I would say even now he's not eating like every single thing on his plate. He'll probably eat like half or a little bit more than half of what we offer him, but that's kind of the point of baby led weaning, right? Is to let them eat however much they want until they're full. And so I think I had to remind myself that he is not going to be the same as other kids. He's going to be his own person. He's going to eat whatever he wants to eat, and that is okay. I think a lot of moms will see all these other kids eating so much food and wonder what the heck is wrong with their kid, but I just feel like that's normal. Every kid's gonna have a different appetite. Every kid's gonna have a different amount of calories they have to take to gain weight. It's the same as us adults. Like, I feel like I have a bigger appetite than Chad does. Other people are gonna have a bigger appetite than I am, and that is normal. We all operate a little differently. And so I just had to keep reminding myself that he does not have to be like every other kid. And also, I would say most kids don't eat every single thing off their plate. As long as they're gaining weight and having wet and poopy diapers, that is seriously what matters. Also, in that first year of life, breast milk or formula is the main source of food. So take the pressure off yourself. I feel like I needed to just take the pressure off of myself in that season, and that made things a little bit easier. In those first couple of months of eating, it was hard to adjust to this new thing that we had to do for him, but then once it got to around like 9, 10, 11 months, things started to get a lot easier. But then once you hit that stage where you have to make 3 full meals and add 2 snacks in, that was when it got a little bit more tricky again, because that's a lot of meals and that's a lot of food to be thinking about all the time. It's gotten easier since he's turned 1 because he just eats whatever we make for ourselves, and we just try to make it as healthy as we can. But before then, when we had to modify his food to have no sugar and no salt, it was a lot harder. I know we're still supposed to limit those things, but we feel more comfortable giving him what we're having, especially because we know that we're trying our best to consume more whole and healthy foods. So it's not as big of a deal now, but before we really did try to steer away from any sort of sodium or sugar. And I think that put a lot of pressure on me too, to just make sure that there were 3 perfect meals, well balanced, and 2 snacks. It was just a lot for a little bit. Now that we're past that, things have gotten better. In terms of Boston himself, he really struggled with eating when he was teething, whenever he was sick. So I feel like there's been a lot of ups and downs in the journey, but whenever he's feeling pretty good, he honestly eats pretty well, I would say. And you'll kind of figure out what is normal for your baby. And I think that's what's important, is not figuring out what's normal for like all babies, but figuring out what is normal for your baby, like what the normal amount that they would eat and what different foods they like. And so I know that with Boston, he normally takes, you know, a certain amount of food, but whenever he's sick or teething, he won't eat that much. So those are the times where I do get a little bit worried, because we went to the pediatricians at his 1-year mark and he had lost a little bit of weight, I think, and they were kind of concerned about it. But I think I just also had to remind myself that he is in the 75th percentile for weight. It's okay if he loses a little bit. He had been sick and teething for pretty much the whole month. And I feel like being a mom, you just get all sorts of in your head about if you're taking care of your baby correctly. And it's just something that I feel like I've needed to pray about, that I would have peace about it, because it is something that I've struggled with so much. Comparison and numbers and milestones, I feel like all of those things can add so much pressure. And I feel like God has really just been trying to help me loosen up that control and helping me to surrender to him in this season, because I know that everything can't be perfect and not everything is gonna go that smoothly. Like, things are gonna happen. Babies are gonna grow teeth and babies are gonna get sick, and all of that plays a factor in eating. So all that to say, it has definitely been not the easiest journey for me, but it has been a big learning experience and it's honestly really fun. I love seeing him eat, especially in those first few days, watching him try different foods and taste different flavors. It was just so fun to watch him do all that, all of the different expressions he would make, and I wish I would have soaked it in a little bit more instead of pressuring myself to do all of these things for him and for his eating journey. I feel like I made it a bigger deal than it was. I wish I would have approached it with more of a lightheartedness, you know what I mean? So anyway, God is definitely working on that in my heart. All that to say, we really did enjoy baby led weaning and we're really glad we did it, because I feel like now he really isn't as picky with certain foods. He's kind of getting to the stage where he's getting a little bit more picky with what he wants to eat, but there's still a good amount of foods that he enjoys eating. So there's some things where he's like, I definitely don't want to eat that, and then I feel like most things he will at least try first, and then if he doesn't like it, he won't eat it. And I'm okay with that, because there's foods that I don't like either, and I'll try it, and if I don't like it, then I probably won't eat anymore. So I think that baby led weaning definitely played a huge factor in the pickiness. I don't know if it will get worse. He is almost 14 months now, and I feel like the pickiness kind of starts right around when they turn 1. So I feel like he's doing a pretty good job so far. I hope that this video was helpful. I will be praying for all of you guys that are starting this journey. I hope that it goes well, and just don't put too much pressure on yourself, you know? Let me know if you guys have any questions. If I'm missing anything, just let me know. I will get back to you guys, but thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye guys.